From the iShin Broadcast Studio, it's the Under the Radar Podcast.
Hey there, it's Jason Stahl with another episode of Under the Radar, our podcast exclusively focused on ADAS, scanning, calibration, diagnostics, electronics, and more. Today, my guest is Josh Fuller, who is the CEO of Fuller Collision Group and the owner of ADAS Diagnostics Solutions. Welcome, Josh.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Great to be here.
You're welcome. And first of all, I got to tell you something. I was looking into your background, and you are a unicorn in this industry. You have a Bachelor of Science degree in finance from Bentley University. I mean, you're the unicorn. That's crazy, right? And I was also looking at your family history, and I believe you're fourth generation. Tell me a little bit about Fuller Collision Group, and tell me a little bit about ADAS Diagnostics Solutions, and tell me a little bit about your family history.
Absolutely. Thanks so much. Well, I don't know about a unicorn, if that's a correct terminology. I really don't have too much on my head, but I'll take it. Anything is good. I am fourth generation owner of Fuller Automotive Companies here in Auburn. It all started with my great-grandfather, transitioning from the horse and buggy and over to the Model T, the ignition wiring. And from there, decades after decades after decades, our family, my grandfather, my father, and now my brother and sister have all transitioned everything from a collision repair shop to mechanical repairs to OEM car dealerships, used car lots, aftermarket vehicle, manufactured of aftermarket systems, car alarms, all the way through. And we've kind of landed on a sweet spot right about now, the last 20, 30 years in collision repair, mechanical repair, and then most recently, advanced driver assistance systems, diagnostic solutions, right? So we're just a regular family of entrepreneurs. There's plenty of us out there in the country. A lot of them like to, kind of surround themselves around the automobile industry because it's, no pun intended, but it's always moving, right? Things are always moving. So the most recent pivot over to ADAS Diagnostic Solutions and the calibrations that kind of let us into that with the pre and the post scan has been truly exciting. But we're happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
So this ADAS Diagnostic Solutions, if you look at your history and your timeline, it sounds like a natural evolution for you guys. Like, to your point, you went from horse and buggy repair to car repair, and over the years you just sort of added on different niches, business services to collision repair. And so this ADAS Diagnostic Solutions is the next evolution, the latest evolution. So tell me, when you started this, I believe it was 2021, was this to do the calibrations for your own body shops, vehicles? And then what is it today? Are you doing calibrations in your market?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, like any really great idea, it comes from a problem, right? So wherever there's a problem, there comes, a solution. And so what we started to see back in even 18, 19, 2000, we started to see our cycle time kind of creep up, and we started to see our CSI come down. And we're like, why is this happening? And what we nailed it down was the end of the repair was getting longer and longer. And we're like, why? And then we found out that we're sending more and more stuff to the dealer. And we're like, why? And it's because we're having to see that because at the time, there was no check engine light. There was no light that said, hey, the car didn't say I need to be calibrated. The car doesn't know it's not calibrated. But we started to see everything in the industry, and thanks to great, magazines such as yourself and everything, staying really in tune with what was going on. Like, hey, the manufacturers are saying these cars need to be calibrated. And we had some many scary times that really proved that point, that if you're not paying attention and listening to what the OEM repair procedures and recommendations are, you're really not fixing a car safely. So it was through that issue that we said, all right, well, let's find out what's going on here. So we took about 9 months or so, and we did a kind of a true test analysis and sent almost everything to the dealer, and got everything back and see what was going on. We didn't see much success with that. And so at that point, and I believe it was in 2020, 21, we bought our first Autel system. And we started to mess around with the calibrations. A lot of pushback from the insurance companies. It's recommended. It's a fad. It doesn't need to be done. There's nothing on the dash. You're just XYZ, right? But we knew in our heart that cars weren't being fixed correctly. And believe me, I had some irate customers come in with some almost serious accidents because we didn't fix the car correctly when we should have, because of calibrations that weren't done. So it was at that point that we just started moving. And we, like any good business, we started small, and we kept a good focus on our P&L, and looking at our margins, and just we kept internal. So we went from a stall inside of our existing shop and just doing our own repairs and our own calibrations. And then we said, what, this is getting big. So we created the own separate company, a separate brick and mortar. We went to a one-bay garage, and then it morphed into a two-bay garage. And then as early as last year, we moved into a 10-bay, 4,500 square foot, brand new facility, fully equipped with, we've got 3 mobile units, as well as 2 mobile units inside, lifts, software, tools, you name it. We're doing a lot of calibrations, and not only that, a lot of diagnostics. Right now, we're serving about, not only are we serving our 2 collision repair facilities here in central Massachusetts, but we're serving about 75 other collision centers in and around Massachusetts, and continue to expand upon that for the needs of calibrations. So it's been super exciting. It's been a great growth, but like anything else, it's hasn't been easy.
That's interesting, Josh. And you said earlier that you were sending to the dealer, and I feel like the industry feels like that is the solution sometimes to their problems. But what I'm hearing from body shops is that sometimes I feel like the collision industry is way ahead of the curve than dealerships, because they have been neck deep in this ADAS stuff for longer than the dealers. And in some cases, the dealers don't even understand how to do a calibration, or the difference between a calibration and a scan and this and that. Do you feel like the collision industry, because out of necessity, has been through boot camp on this stuff and is ahead of the dealers, and then sending a dealer is probably not the advisable thing?
I would 100% agree with you, and I believe it comes down to the business model of where does the profit come from? How can you maximize sales per square foot? At a dealership, unfortunately, it's not with calibrations, okay? And that's where the focus is going to be, is on those service lanes. They're pumping out things that they're far better at, that they can increase their frequency and their price per square foot a lot easier than performing calibrations. Not only that, but in the private sector, from an OEM standpoint, from what I'm hearing, the OEMs are having a very difficult time, pushing down to, their dealers and saying, hey, you now have to buy XYZ. You have to buy XYZ. And, a lot of dealer GMs that I know, and even, dealer collision shop managers, they're like, yeah, we had to buy this, $50,000 piece of equipment, and it sits in the corner. So I think there's still a lot of animosity there, but I believe it comes down to a price per square foot. And at the end of the day, you don't have any collision repair technicians at a dealership. They're all service technicians, okay? So when a calibration doesn't go correctly, who's going to be taking off a bumper? Who's going to be taking out a headlight? It's a completely different business model, but it's very frustrating that there is still that stigma and that stereotype that when it comes to that car, the dealer knows best. When it comes to calibrations, that is clearly not the point.
Yeah, and speaking of profit, Josh, a lot of shops now are being encouraged to do calibrations in-house. but we know that there's not a body shop in the country that has a perfectly flat floor, right? And there's space limitations, space issues. So, but they're saying shops to do this in-house because to keep more of the profit and to control the repair from start to finish, improve their cycle time instead of sending it out to a calibration center or a dealer. What is your take on shops attempting to do these calibrations in-house?
I love this question, Jason. Let me ask you a question. If you had a brain tumor, would you allow a cardiologist to remove it?
No, of course not.
Okay. All right. No, all kidding aside. Listen, if an auto body shop has a flat floor, they've got a dedication to OEM training. They can purchase the equipment. They've got the capital. They understand the necessary requirements to properly do calibrations. Then yeah, have at it. Right. Again, it becomes a KPI function. Where are you going to make the most money? And sales per square foot, collision repair or calibrations, right? And it comes down to a business sense. But what we're finding is, can shops do it? Yes. But it doesn't make sense for all. Should they do it? We've seen it be successful. We've also seen it gone the other way where you have equipment manufacturers that want to sell equipment and products. So oh yeah, you guys can do it. You can put it right over here. And just, you're crazy not to. Let's go. Everybody's doing it. We've actually purchased 2 of our existing systems from body shops because they purchased a system, they gave a shot at it, and they weren't successful. At the end of the day, it's not only is it a different business model, but it's the fact that to properly do calibrations, understand it, to prepare the proper documentation, do the research. You're now requiring not only collision repair techs, but mechanics, ASE certified mechanics, diagnostic technicians, and then you've got to get some really awesome people and have a great culture of, I want to say it. I mean, our people, they're awesome. They're introverts. They're gamers. They love this stuff. They are problem solvers, right? So the genetic makeup, what does your DISC assessment say? Really comes into play with properly, staffing a calibration facility. The other issue that we've seen and that we've warmed, so we consult for some other shops looking to do the same thing to make the jump, is that if you're going into a calibration business and you have an existing collision repair business, if you're going to operate that calibration business with the same mindset of how you've been operating your auto body shop for years, you're going to fail because it can't be done. It's apples and oranges. And believe me, the insurance companies want you to go into operating that calibration facility with that same mindset. We see it every day.
Yeah, you're right. And to your point about in-house versus a calibration center like yours, here you guys have been doing calibrations for what, 4 or 5 years now. And we talk about in the magazine all the time, experience is huge, right? With these ADAS technicians. Every day, your guys are seeing calibrations and calibration failures, and there's so many reasons why a calibration might fail. And you've got to get that experience, right? So if you're a body shop deciding to do this in-house tomorrow, you're starting from square one, whereas you guys, your technicians in those calibration centers have the experience, right? Which is so critical in troubleshooting these systems, correct?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree with you more. We actually we just had a dinner 2 nights ago with our calibration team celebrating some great KPIs and achievements on their end. And it was awesome to hear them talk, because they were literally, even at dinner, talking about, some of the failed calibrations throughout the course of the day. And like, oh, that was that one. Yeah. Oh, this is the reason why that happened. And this is the reason why that happened. And we have to do this. And it's just like a lot of this terminology stuff was far over my head. But to your point, it's almost like the court of law, right? There is a lot of precedent that needs to be set. There is a solid foundation that needs to be built, because as you start to do these calibrations, there are a lot of them, an increasing amount, unfortunately, aren't going to pass. And I believe it's because of the amount of variables that continue to get introduced into the whole process. All right. You now have newer cars, newer models that are designed so differently year after year after year, because the OEM just wants to sell cars, right? They want to sell cars. They want to service cars. So just like Apple, I'm going to change my charger. I'm going to change my port every other year. So you have to buy new stuff. Well, now you've got that unit that now gets into an accident. The variable. What are the road conditions? Who's the driver? Who's in the car? What did they hit? How fast were they going? And then last but not least, now it gets into the repair center. Do you know how many repair centers fix a car the same way? Not a lot. Okay. And so you're seeing just a very diverse amount of repairs happening. And fortunately, a lot of them are accurate enough where calibrations can be passed, but there are some that we're finding that aren't. So if you're not following OEM repair procedures, you're just really kind of not in the know. And again, the OEM repair procedures, it's been years. And thankfully, we've got some great people that, it started with all data, all right? And then it went into, repair logic. And, you have ADAS thinking and Rev ADAS. I mean, just software after software after software to get the tools and resources needed to fix these cars properly.
Presented from the Aishin Broadcast Studio at Babcock's Media.
Your business model, the standalone calibration center, I think there's still less than 100 across the country, right? They're popping up all over the place, but there's still not a whole lot. But in your market, do you have any competition? And if so, what makes your particular ADAS Diagnostic Solutions Center stand out from the crowd?
Yeah, we're seeing an increased amount of competition. I mean, of course, you still have the stigma of you need to send everything to the dealer. We do see a lot of mobile units being spun out from mechanical garages. You see some glass companies that have kind of integrated that business model a little bit. Some with success, some without. What we've continued just to value ourselves and where we set ourselves, kind of a different from our competition is, we really look at our culture and our people as our differentiating factor. They're representatives that not only have to be a combination of a collision repair technician, a mechanic, and a diagnostic technician, but they've got to drive around either in a mobile unit or via HQ headquarters at the lab to be able to fix cars. But now they're going into other people's collision repair centers, right? So how do they have to act and perform so that they are perceived and proven as a valuable asset to that shop? I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, the average collision repair shop owner has got quite the large ego, as he should, right? This isn't an easy industry to be in. And so when it comes down to that Thursday and Friday, and you need that car out the door, and all of a sudden there's a calibration that fails, and you've already pushed that customer off a couple days, you don't have much time. So we are seeing a huge amount of stuff where it's same day turnaround. We've got to be ready to be able to evaluate the day, see what comes in, and we'll come in the morning sometimes, and there'll be 5 or 6 cars dropped off the night before from a flatbed with no information whatsoever. And then that's where we're like, oh, we need to get better at our customer intake process. How can we evaluate these cars better? So being in the local area, it really becomes of a value that, hey, we're doing something right. We have the integrity it takes. We're providing well-documented OEM repair procedures, reasoning. And at the end of the day, we've still got that small town feel where they can make a phone call and they know they're going to get a correct answer from our team. They're not going to have to wait on hold. They're not going to have to book an appointment and wait till next week to get it in, and then wait another couple days for the repairs, and then it doesn't get documented, and then you can't do a simple pass through with no markup or no profitability from the dealer. It's a win-win all around, and so it's great to be able to provide these solutions to other shops in the area, and just kind of the rising sea brings up all boats, if you will.
You said you have the cars dropped off at your facility. Do you ever go pick up a car at a shop that says, I can't get to you, can you come get the car? Or also, do you ever have situation where you go out and attempt to do a calibration at a shop environment? I'm guessing not. I'm guessing your facility is where you want to do it because it's optimized for calibration, but
I wish the answer was that easy. Unfortunately, it's not. We kind of go through a process of elimination, if you will, depending. We try to get as much information as possible as far as what the car is going to require. We do have the ability to perform calibrations and do some calibrations at some of our customers' shops because they've got an appropriate area for it. That's a win. A lot of times, if it's an initialization or module reprogramming, we can do that there. We're certified with NAS TF to do key programming. That actually comes into play, especially when you talk about a lot of your Mopar products. But then a lot of times we will try to do it on site. If we can, we've got to bring it back. So yeah, we do perform valet service for our customers. We do have full-time transportation specialists with us, is what we call them. So we'll go pick up, bring back, and more importantly, depending on what the calibration is, because mind you, 60% of collision repairers require at least a calibration, right? And some of our customers are mechanical garages where 15% of mechanical repairs require a calibration. So with that number increasing over time, so are the amount of tools needed to properly do the calibration. So we can't fit all those tools in a mobile unit. So a lot of the stuff has to be kept at the lab, kept in a safe environment, because you never know what you're gonna do. You know, it's not like the olden days where the doctor shows up to your house with a little black bag and you can fix all things. You know.
you mentioned reflashing. Tell me on a daily basis what your technicians are doing at your centers. Is it pretty much calibrations? Is it reflashing? Is it reprogramming modules? Is it scanning the vehicle? What is some of the common tasks that your technicians are doing on a daily basis that collision repairers need?
I would say all the above, and then probably one of the largest components that we're seeing now is a lot of diagnosing. We're seeing a lot of diag going on because the complexity, just the wiring schematics are crazy, and we're in New England, so you know you get a lot of potholes, you get a lot of debris, sand, salt. And then when you start getting into wires, exposing wires somewhere on the vehicle, it's absolutely crazy, you know, where it leads to. So there's a lot of pinpointing that we're having to do, a lot of schematics that we're having to follow. And we're finding issues all over the vehicle that are nowhere near either the initial or secondary point of impact.
How are you staffing your calibration centers? I've heard from other standalone calibration companies that they're going after ASC certified auto service technicians because they have 20 years experience using a scan tool versus a collision technician who doesn't. Are you taking employees from your collision shops and maybe transitioning them to the calibration because maybe they wanted a career change, maybe they have a skill set more adaptable to that? How are you finding these people to staff your centers?
All the above. Online software, hiring websites, word of mouth. Really, not much changes when you're looking to hire. We look to hire for aptitude, and then we will train. We've recently launched a kind of a rotational training program where we can pretty much train up somebody within 3 months. They really had come from outside the industry. Matter of fact, 5 of our 7 technicians came from outside the industry. And not only that, what I love, being on advisory committees at tech schools in the area, we've got some co-ops that are just absolutely awesome. Juniors, seniors, the co-ops that are coming in, and they just get this stuff, man. It's crazy. Like, they're so used to, they grew up with tablets, they grew up with phones, and they can navigate their way around and finding stuff. We have a recent co-op right now. She's a senior. She could run the shop on her own, absolutely, and she's just got the mental know-how, aptitude, and ability to problem solve. So it's great. So to answer your question, anywhere and everywhere.
Yeah, and there's been some controversy in the industry. A lot of talk lately about insurance companies seem like they're clamping down on what they want to pay for these services. We knew it was coming, right? Because they want to pay all shops the same labor rate too. When aluminum started becoming a thing, aluminum repair, they didn't want to pay any more for that. And it seems like they're wanting to standardize what they're paying everybody for calibrations, a pre-scan, a post-scan. Are you feeling that in your market, and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you can't fault the insurance companies for wanting to set a certain level of standardization. I mean, at the last year's CCC conference, they went through the amount of data that they utilize, and how many different lines and variations that you see calibrations come through on estimates. And if you think about that and multiply it by the number of claims, number of carriers, that's a lot of processing, and that costs a lot of money. So I get it. They're looking for a certain level of standardization. Just because I get it doesn't mean I agree with it. This certainly isn't a square peg that can fit in a round hole. There are some level, maybe a certain percentage of the calibrations, but again, it comes down to the number of variables that the calibration really demands, and how the vehicle was fixed, and how the accident happened. So it's, is there a way to make the industry easier? But again, we're seeing differences not only just in our market, but in just even right outside our market, just across state lines, of how these calibrations are happening and how carriers are treating them. So we will continue to see, the push to some level of standardization. You'll continue to see the insurance companies look to move towards more cost containment. I mean, at the end of the day, that's their job, right? But it doesn't mean that we have to sacrifice safety. It doesn't mean we have to sacrifice profit, and we certainly can't sacrifice the ability to carry on with the innovation.
So Josh, just to sort of wrap this up, I want you to give me some bullet point advice for a shop that wants to do it in-house, the calibrations, and then also advice for someone who wants to open up their own calibration center.
First off, I would say, for, in-house, we're actually consulting with a couple of facilities right now that are looking to expand operations, through calibrations. And they're looking to spend a good amount of money with infrastructure build out, things of that nature. But I would caution first to really look in the mirror first. And I'm a big proponent of, if your margins aren't at least within top tier of benchmark industry margins, meaning parts gross profit, labor gross profit, sublet gross profit, then there's a lot less of a lift, and there's more profitability to fix that, right? So fix your house first. Then from there, definitely, look into the calibration. Understand, what's your market, what's a sales mix that you're fixing, because when it comes down to it, you can buy any equipment under the sun, any software, laptops, how many OEM softwares do you purchase? What subscriptions? How many aftermarket tools? I mean, it goes on forever, right? So understand what your market is and take it slow. As you take it slow, if you're going to do it in-house, understand that you're doing something completely different than collision repair. So it's really got nothing to do with collision repair. It's a mechanical function. It's a diagnostic function. It doesn't come under, the body and the paint type of procedures. Now, standalone as a calibration facility, it really comes down to, economics and business kind of 101. Have an accurate P&L, all right? Have an accurate P&L with a fantastic chart of accounts in which you're accurately tracking every sales and every cost that goes into that facility and be able to look at it at least weekly, monthly basis to establish some really great KPIs that you want to consistently track, because you're going to grow. And as you grow, you need to grow according to what the KPIs tell you. And then whether you're doing 3 calibrations per day or to 10, you've got to maintain a certain level of consistency. That's also going to give you a better idea of what your sales mix is. If we're talking static versus dynamic, do you go on it and invest in a mobile unit? What does your marketing look like? Calibrations are really right now a business to business type model. It's not B2C yet. So there's a lot of things that come into play. I love watching some of the larger ones coming on to the scene, like Kinetic, and just at the larger shops with their tooling. It's phenomenal, and the way they've got this nailed down, it's just a very scalable model that can be done over time. I just question, if there's enough, or how they're going to go about and just really having to produce that ROI, on a monthly basis, because we found that starting off small and growing intentionally really makes a large difference. Not only that, we're in an industry that it's not pretty consistent. There's a lot of ups and downs. So, you've got to be able to, be in it for the long haul, maintain a very strict level of standards and values. Because if you go too fast, you'll get burned. If you go too slow, you'll kind of miss out. So it's really, consistency, stability wins the race in my book.
Great, Josh. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time. You're doing a great service to the industry. We know these calibrations are needed. We know a lot of shops are doing them incorrectly. We know a lot of consumers are having issues with their vehicles, and our reputations are at stake, and there's a lot of liability involved too. So the fact that you've created an expert organization as a service to the industry is a wonderful thing, and hopefully that's a trend that continues, and hopefully the industry as a whole will increase its learning curve and knowledge of ADAS calibrations and these very sophisticated systems, because we need to be there and we need to do a proper repair, and that's part of it, right?
Yeah, Jason, I really could have said it better. We as an industry really kind of have to level up and continue to watch and see what's happening. The technology is not going away. The demands from the consumer are only getting increased. And you talk about, 5 years, 10 years ago, it was like increased CSI. Everybody's used to Amazon. How does a body shop compete with that? What level of service? Well, now you've got great tools out there like, Body Shop Booster that utilizes AI for customer service. Well, now when it comes down to calibrations, you think about it, you've really got to have the technology to evaluate and do the proper calibrations. Not only that, the OEM manufacturers are selling these vehicles based off safety and all the cool gadgets that are on the car that prevent accidents. Okay, if you listen, I think one of the most recent radio commercials I heard was Hyundai, and the first thing it says, we've got X amount of advanced driver assistance systems in the car that help you drive, keep you safe, right? So the manufacturers know that we can't put the phone down or not stay on the road. We're always distracted, so they're going to continue to build these systems in the cars to keep everybody safe. Well, that's not going away, but having to repair them is getting more and more complex, and we're not even to the point yet where this technology has been on the road. What's going to happen over time when they have to be maintained, right? So you think about how states have mandated inspection stickers because of emissions and rust on cars. Well, I don't know where the future is going to be, but I'm kind of predicting it's going to be somewhere around advanced driver assistance systems.
Well said, Josh. Well, thanks again for your time.
Jason, thanks so much for having us. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for all you do in the industry. It's a great, and happy to be here.
I'm Jason Stahl. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching this episode of Under the Radar. For more episodes, visit bodyshopbusiness.com.